You're listening to Pickleball Business Lab, the podcast where pickleball meets profit. Each week, your hosts, Colin and JR, dive deep into the business behind the fastest growing sport in America. From pro team owners and league execs to brand builders, sponsors, and startup founders, we're talking to the people shaping the future of the game. This isn't just about how you play. It's about how you build, grow, and win in the business of pickleball. Now let's head into the lab.
Welcome to the Pickleball Business Lab, the podcast where pickleball meets profit. I'm your co-host, Colin.
And I'm your co-host, JR.
And every week we'll dive into the deals, brands, sponsorships, and marketing moves driving the fastest growing sport in America, from team owners and brand builders to league execs, startup founders, and pro players. This is the inside look at the business behind the game. Whether you're building a business, investing in the industry, or just obsessed with the rise of pickleball, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Looking forward to it.
So I think when we were toying around with some recordings, it might have been like at the first stop on the MLP. I believe that was in Orlando. It was pretty exciting with the court colors. Each tour stop has had its own unique situation arise. I think the last one, nothing too crazy happened as far as a team fighting each other or court colors. I think the biggest thing that came out, which was pretty big, Jack Sock hit an ATP that actually made ESPN's top plays of the week. So that was pretty cool to see. I think for us, though, we could talk about pickleball paddles, and I think we'll probably do that once in a while if we can get some brands on the episode or some brand owners. But what we want to do as we introed here on episode 1 is we really want to talk first about ourselves a little bit, let people know who we are, things that drive us, and a little bit about our backgrounds. We're going to get into episode 1 talking about the business marketing side of the MLP, which is Major League Pickleball for those who don't know. What we have in pickleball is the PPA, which is a lot like some of the PGA Tour stops. You got players playing for themselves. They'll have their single matches. They'll have what's called mixed doubles. That would be a guy and a girl playing together. And then you have doubles, which, would be girl, girl, guy, guy. And then you have the MLP. So the MLP are team ownership groups that own a team. You got some big name people investing money into these MLP teams. One of the bigger ones that you and I know from business world is Gary Vee, right? And the New Jersey Fives, and the whole story of why they were called the Fives. We'll look to get into as we move along here in some more episodes down the road. I think one of the things that we'll do is we will talk about the branding, the marketing, the partnerships they have started to build. And the funny part is when we first started doing that original test recording, right? And we had a bunch of ideas. It's funny as we've moved along into 5 weeks since that test episode, that some of the suggestions that we were making in that very long-winded podcast, some of those things they're actually doing now. It's kind of cool to see that happen, right? So let's jump into where MLP has gone from a branding, advertising, and key sponsorship. So really focusing in on that key sponsorship. Back in 2022 to 24, title sponsorship naming rights was Margaritaville. And actually, it was like that, I think, even when I first started watching MLP, which was not that long ago, because I'm not new to pickleball, but I'm new to the pro side of pickleball. I've known about pickleball for decades. And for those who don't know or don't know me, I'm 44, I'll be 45 in August. So back in high school, a little bit about me. I guess probably we should start right. Let's talk about ourselves first before we jump in. I started playing pickleball back in the day with the wooden paddles. You still can buy wooden paddles. My newest baby. Let me pull this out. Jerry, you know nothing about this. I've been wanting a power paddle, and I've been getting addicted to buying these pickleball paddles, but I'm not going to spend $300 on a Perseus 4. So I got this Vapor 11624 Vapor in the Royal Burst. So they come in 2 colors, but I got the Royal Burst because I wanted something real flashy, and I've decked it all out. So this is the 11.6 Power Series Vapor. This is the hybrid model. It came in this Royal Burst color, which is like the purple, pink, and white. So sticking with that, because you know how I am. I love flashy. I got U dripping, bright pink grip with a Hesicore over grip under there, and then wrap this. I got the fourth edge grip. I forget what this color was called, but it's like a white and pink, and it just kind of fades. And then I added the U dripping band around that. I have yet to play with this paddle except in the house.
Sure, your wife likes that.
Well, so I recently bought from Carbon. They're a pickleball company, but they make these quiet balls made to hit in the house, and they're squishy. I can hit. The only problem is I tried hitting them, and my dog, anytime he sees a ball, he freaks out and he thinks it's his. So these will get destroyed. So I got to be careful when and how I play with these. Okay, so this is my newest paddle. I have yet to actually play with it. There's actually even a new paddle coming out from, oh man, it just slipped my mind. I have their one paddle, Vatic Pro. Vatic Pro has a new foam paddle coming out. Foam is the future of pickleball paddles. And a lot of these paddles can be power paddles. The Yola Perseus 4 that Ben Johns uses, and some like Anna Bright and Tyson McGuffin, they each have their own models, but those are all foam core paddles. They're priced at like $300, like $280, $288. That Vatic Pro paddle is going to be at $109 retail with a discount code is going to drop down to $99. So $99 versus $300. Why not go buy 3 of those so that when it eventually breaks, you got your backup ready to rock and roll. That'll come out, I think, in late July. I'm excited about that. A little bit about me. My background is in marketing, digital marketing, content marketing, anything you can think of from a digital marketing perspective, right? SEO, websites. In the last 7 years, I have been in pharma marketing, working on some very large brands that if I said any of these names, you would 1000% know who they are. There was cuts. So as of March 7th, I have been laid off since then, still applying, but really just been focusing in on my family. I had a daughter who just graduated high school. I got a son who's getting ready to go into high school, just trying to spend time with them, take a small sabbatical while I am applying for stuff. Me and JR have been talking for a long time about starting some podcasts. And this is one that I think has a lot of potential. As you, a pickleball player, probably already know. You know how addictive the sport is. Millions of people in the US play in pickleball. And there's, a lot's happening in the worldwide growth of pickleball, thanks to people like Connor Pardo, who runs the PPA and helps to run the MLP since the PPA bought the MLP. There's tons of growth happening, and there is some, we'll call them player ambassadors that are helping to preach the gospel of pickleball, right? A lot of Asian markets are really having massive growth. Tying in what I love with marketing, digital marketing, the websites, the branding, the sponsorships, the micro influencers, the large influencers that are out there. And also, I think there's so much growth opportunity there. I would love for anybody out there to reach out to us and give us their thoughts on what they'd like to hear from us from a content perspective. We were kind of leaning into the MLP season, maybe going into some of the teams and what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, and then what they could do better, right? But then also, let's get into some of the stuff that can be done from a player perspective when it comes to branding and influencership, because there's one guy I can tell you right now, without a shadow of a doubt, he is killing it. And he's killing it in revenue too. While I don't know his numbers, I can tell you he's got great brand sponsorships and partnerships on top of the money he makes or doesn't make from a PPA event. He's making it in all of his sponsorship deals. Now there's other people out there that, are doing well from a winning perspective, and they might have 1 or 2 branding sponsorships, but they don't do a good job. They don't do a good job of showcasing who they are. Those are the things I want to get into as we dig into this and talk about those different topics. Once again, Colin, like I said, background's digital marketing, everything that touches that. Married, 2 kids. My daughter, Bella, she's 18. My son, Maddox, just turned 15. Like I said, she just graduated high school, getting ready to go on to college. My son will be a freshman. So that's a little bit about me. I kind of went all over the board, probably threw people for a loop with all my little rants and raves there, but JR, let me turn it over to you and give you a chance to speak and tell people about you.
Yeah, that's okay, Colin. Appreciate it. I'm sure anybody who tunes in will get used to your rants and raves. Yep, JR, 43, be 44 in November. Also married, 3 kids. Okay. He's 12 going on 13. Ryan is 10 going on 11. Our Sarah will be 9 in August. So those 3 keep me pretty busy. I'm also super passionate about business and growing businesses and understanding what works and what doesn't to help businesses grow. I think that's why I wanted to participate in this thought experiment with Colin around pickleball. I also like sports, athletes, appreciate the work that goes into it, the drive, the focus. But at the same time, it's a business. It's really fun to think about how the MLP or the PPA positions themselves to gain followers, to spread the game. We were probably in our mid to late teens when Tiger took the world by storm. As a former golfer, I was probably a little bit better decades ago than I am now. There was nobody more exciting to watch and follow when you watched golf than Tiger. He turned the game on its head and brought all kinds of new people along to follow. It'll be fun to watch pickleball grow the same way. There's clearly a lot of interest in it. It'll be nice to see some of those personalities start to come out and carry the sport forward. Opposite of what you had said, I didn't know pickleball existed decades ago. It was not a thing that we played in phys ed class in high school. I really only became familiar with it when my father-in-law started talking about it, and he's probably in his early 60s. Why would they name something pickleball? He's telling me about this sport they're playing. He would play here at home in Southwest PA when he was here for the winter, and he would play for the summer because he goes south for the winter where the weather's nicer in Florida. And he would play down there in the wintertime. I would think to myself, why would you name a sport pickleball? What's this thing you're talking about? A little bit of research. It's sort of like tennis. Please don't be offended. If that offends any listeners, I'm really not trying to be offensive. But for me, it was just because I'd never heard of those. Oh, it's just kind of like tennis for old people. But here we are, old people now, right? So we find it fascinating. We enjoy it. Our last trip to Florida earlier this winter, we're going back 5 or 6 months ago now. I actually got out a couple mornings with him and played a little bit. It's fun. I'll give you that. So I can see why everybody really loves it. But it's also fun to watch, even in the community that he lives in. They've got an organized league where they've got their team and they compete against teams from neighboring communities. And boy, the people show up for it. It's just wild. And those are in what you would consider kind of retirement communities, right? But I've got a brother-in-law that plays religiously as well, and he's not yet 40. So The game's everywhere. The fact that the business side of it is intriguing, that's what brings us together here to shine some light on not only the sport, but the business side of it as well. We're really looking forward to talking more about it.
So let's talk about the demographics of pickleball. You said a few things that I wanted to chime in a little bit, but I'm going to let him finish. So once again, me and JR both go to church. We both are from Southwest PA, but we live in different areas. About 40 minutes, 35 minutes from you, depending on traffic. So when I saw in high school, and I'm sure anybody who's our age group who was introduced to it in high school, you saw the ball. And if you were a wiffle ball all-star, like I was, because I was a baseball player, I knew I was going to drop bombs inside the gymnasium, and all the girls are like, oh my gosh, he's amazing at wiffle ball. But I saw that ball and I'm like, okay, I'm going to tear this up. I was really good at it. But after high school ends, right? I think I played that my junior year, my senior year in gym and gym only. And that's really what it was. It was kind of like a backyard activity for those who played it at home. You think about any of your yard sports, right? Like cornhole and lawn darts, bocce ball. That's kind of what it was. Now, fast people were saying, hey, you should play pickleball. You should play pickleball. I did like that, the stigma that pickleball is. And there's all kinds of running jokes out there on the internet. You can see it's also, not granted, but it's the fastest growing sport. So obviously from a doctor, sports medicine one of the highest, it's the highest sport for sports injuries now because of the growth of the sport. And quite frankly, that's probably is from the older demographic that are playing it. And there's a lot of lateral movements. And if you're not working out and working on your knee strength and, and working on those ligaments and stuff like that, you easily can get hurt. Even if you are in shape, you still could get hurt. So I started to play it and I saw more young people. Then I came across the PPA, the MLP. And now there's the junior PPA. Connor Pardo really got this whole thing growing well and to what it is today. And they've started to build this structure where they're integrating in the amateurs to like go into competitions sponsored by the PPA, giving them chances to showcase their skills and abilities. I'm hoping that down the road we can get somebody on from Duper, universal scoring system. There's competition out there for Duper. Whether or not it gets to that point, I'm not quite sure. If one or the other will take over, but as of now, it's Duper. But it's allowing a lot more young people the opportunity into the sport, and you're seeing kids as young as 7, 8 years old competing, not playing, competing, and they're really good. I'm positive they would smoke me 11-0. That's how good they are.
And I'm positive that would be the result.
And I'm a competitive person, especially when it comes to sports. You put me on any field, court, I'm going to be as competitive as I possibly can. So growth, the market's saturated from a player standpoint in terms of your more mature demographics. They actually said, JR, here's a good one for you. I don't know if I have the stat here. I'm hoping I have it in front of me. I definitely have it on my phone. Give me 1 second.
While you look that up, I'll because we talked about the demographics there, I had to laugh when I realized that when you talk about sponsorships, I had to laugh when I read that Advil was the official pain reliever.
Yes.
The MLP.
Yep. Major League
Big fan
Pickleball.
of Advil.
Major League Pickleball in-person event demographic. So this is MLP events that are in person. The age of an in-person pickleball participant is now 34.8 years old. The largest group being that 25 to 34-year-old group, which is about 2.3 million players. I don't know if those are players that are coming to the events or not, but it said 70% of players in general are 18 to 44 years of age. There's a breakdown of men and women, pickleball followers. So brands, if you're watching this, and I hope you are, there's a lot of kinks and stuff that we have to get through here. Anyway, pickleball followers and participants are more likely to be higher in middle income brackets compared to the general population. Higher income at 22% and middle income at 42%. If you're a brand looking to get into the world of pickleball and getting in front of these people, whether it's television or through events, there's so much you can do here. That's part of what this episode is going to be about, right? The MLP, I want to jump into that quickly because I don't want to have too long of a long-winded episode, because sometimes there's shows I love in the podcast world, particularly in the pickleball world, because that's mainly what I've been listening to lately. And the only thing that sometimes hinders me from hitting play right away is it's an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes. So it does take me a couple different so-called life events, whether I'm at the gym or mowing the grass, to get through. Sometimes I'll pause and watch the YouTube version of them talking. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of innovative things that can happen. Quite frankly, we've had so many great ideas when we were doing that test recording. I'm not connected to anybody in the pickleball world other than some new followers on my personal account and our Pickleball Business Lab on Instagram. For those of you who'd like to give it a follow, we got some pretty good pickleball brands that have started to follow us. So I'm excited about that. But guys, if you're a brand looking to do partnerships, get a hold of the MLP, get a hold of the PPA. Probably would kill me for doing this, but get a hold of Connor Pardo, the CEO. You can get on LinkedIn and you can find any of these people, especially for brand partnerships. And you're talking about a very engaged community. You're putting on fan experiences when they have these events, and these are kind of like pop-up events, right? Like you're going to Columbus for the Columbus Sliders, and they're the hosting team for that one, and then you're going to this next city, and they're the hosting team. They're building everything up prior to, and then these brands are coming in, and they're putting on these fan experiences, so to speak, and people are walking away with swag bags and stuff like that. I just think there's so much they can do there. Any closing thoughts before we jump into the MLP part of the episode?
Let's dive in there. I like that.
All right, awesome. So back in 22 to 24, Margaritaville, the title sponsor, had naming rights. So it kind of gave MLP this laid back, community driven title sponsorship, right? That's the kind of feel that we think of when we think of Margaritaville. We think about Jimmy Buffett. In 25, DoorDash had the full naming rights of the league. And so what you see now is MLP presented by DoorDash. You may or might not know if you're watching or listening to this, but there is an app that you can put on your phone, your iPad, and now your Apple TV device called Pickleball TV. You can sign up. You'll get 30 days free. And obviously, me and JR have no sponsorship deals yet, no partnerships. So everything, I'm saying it from a place of passion, things that I love with pickleball and what's happening from the marketing, advertising world and the technology side of things. So Pickleball TV, there's tons of great shows on there, but every week as they have these events, or in some cases they have a week off, if it's MLP or PPA, we'll hear Dave Fleming, who's also a resident Pittsburghese Yinzer, JR, and I think he's since moved to Florida maybe, but he's one of the main guys that you'll hear calling the tournaments, but you'll hear them say MLP presented by DoorDash. So that's the title sponsorship. That's the naming rights. Then we get into the brand integration side of things, right? So Margaritaville had event signage, hospitality, but it wasn't fully integrated. And that's something we love, right? We love, and quite frankly, I have a bachelor's in marketing. My master's degree is just that, integrated marketing communications. You want a surround sound. You don't want these one-offs, right? So you're doing something from a marketing advertising side over here. You're doing something over there, but they never actually build a full ecosystem that makes it sticky, if you will, right? Multiple touch points that is a surround sound. And that wasn't happening with the whole Margaritaville sponsorship. Today, with the DoorDash deal, you have branding across the jerseys, the courts, the events, the digital platforms. You can't go anywhere without thinking MLP presented by DoorDash. You almost hear Dave Fleming speaking to you when you see it everywhere. So they've done a good job as they've started to integrate this new sponsorship in and just like where they're going with things. Now, granted, it to me, it's still in its infancy of what the MLP is doing. I mean, you have players that are great players and they love their PPA format because they like being that lone wolf. The team aspects, and I'm going off of what I see. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but things that I see, things I hear, they don't like the MLP format. I personally love it for a lot of reasons. Money. You have ownership groups. JR, I don't know if you can think of any off the top of your head right away, but you have LeBron James, you have Gary Vaynerchuk, you have
Wasn't Cuban involved
Mark
in one?
Cuban, Drew Brees. I have a whole list of them somewhere from when we were doing our.
Mahomes was a part of a group. That's the Miami group, right?
Some of these groups have a big ownership team. And one of the ones that really impressed me and blew me away was the Texas Ranchers. They had, was it Lil Wayne? There were some hip hop people, there was athletes, there was entrepreneurs, all of these people who believe in the sport, and they're even playing the sport. They believe in it. They're pumping money into it. With their so-called platform that they are on, right? Gary Vaynerchuk, business world, marketing world, advertising world. Anybody who's in the marketing world knows who Gary Vaynerchuk is, or even in the influencer side of things. So I think there's so much opportunity. There was a situation where, I guess I'll say, because every other podcaster's talked about Ben Johns and Colin Johns, they're brothers. Ben Johns is probably one of the best, if not the best, pickleball player in the world. There could be some interchangeability. There's some guys that are really good and have beaten him, but they were in, I can't think what city it was. They weren't happy with the lighting. and it was an indoor event. Some of these events are outdoor because of weather permitting. Others are indoor because that city doesn't have the facilities set up to have a event of that magnitude, right? Because they don't have a big so-called grandstands and your championship court for the big events where you need to have all those seats available and sell tickets. There's a certain lumen that pickleball courts are supposed to have because the ball's that bright neon yellow, kind of like what I showed in that squishy ball, but the real ball's a lot brighter. And depending on the color of the courts, but I guess Ben has eye issues or vision issues. And quite frankly, if I'm being honest, Ben Johns was having a LeBron moment versus being a leader for what pickleball carrying it forward and finding a way to make things happen. Essentially, Ben Johns didn't try in that event. He was just slapping the ball, called a flick. To me, that's what I saw, a bunch of flicks, and he just didn't move at all. He's watching his partner do everything, making her do everything. And I put a bad taste in my mouth. Anybody new to pickleball and they see that, I put a bad taste in their mouth, honestly. And I'm sure at some point this little clip is going to make it to social media because I'm going to do the social clips and I put stuff out there. And, Ben,
You'll be the one that puts it out.
I'll be the one puts out there. And, Ben Johns, I'm not saying he will, but he could see it and he'd say, like, I don't like him. And that's fine. I mean, if we could ever get him on the show and let him talk through things, I would love to do that. It just gave me that LeBron feel. And I was just like, kind of like, ick, right? Listen, man, I know you're young, but be the leader that you are and have some resiliency. Do whatever you got to do, whether it's some kind of sport goggles that has, whatever you need. But anyway, he basically sent a text from what I've heard through a different podcast, sent a text and they gave him approval to leave. And then his brother was like, I'm not playing in these conditions either. So he got out of it. And everybody was talking about, should they be fined for so many games and money? And I think what had happened was they said they were going to not get their winnings, which, I mean, to us is a big number. To him, it's not a big number because he is a very high paid player. I think it was like 60 grand, which is a good bit of money. I don't know that it does it justice. If I'm wanting to really grow this MLP thing, and Ben Johns, before I forget, he's one of the people who does not like the MLP. You see him in a PPA event. He's got a lot more fire, a lot more drive. He's screaming. And that's what we like to see if we're a person sitting on the other end of the TV or the phone screen watching these events. We want to see that passion. We want to see that drive. Don't give a half-hearted effort into a professional event. So anyway, is there anything you want to touch on as we talk? I think we ended on there with brand integrations before I went off in this rant, but it's just something for me that like I said, it just drives me a little bit crazy. There's so much money to be made here. And that's where I was going with everything. There's so much money to be made here. And go ahead.
Let's talk about the season. I'm fascinated with the length of the season. When you think about other major league sports right now, it's July 2nd as we record. So we're in the middle of Major League Baseball season. It's 162 games. It's a slog. Some of the other leagues, they do 82. The NFL is obviously shorter season at 17 now, plus some preseason games. The point is, the pickleball season is wild because you can play year-round with the use of indoor facilities. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but maybe we've got a couple of things that we could share about the season, because the first thing I think of is if you don't have to worry about being in season, which they're in season now, right? They've been playing for a number of weeks now already, right?
Yep. So April 24th to the 27th was the kickoff, and that was in Orlando. And I think we were talking about our testing out episode 1, which turned into almost 2-hour episode, and we scrapped it, right? It was a learning experience for us, and I think even this one's a learning experience, but we are going to go ahead and push this one live, even with all the kinks and stuff that we've had in it. And we'll get better as we go, and you guys continue to either grow and watch us, or you're on episode 30 at that point, and you come back and listen to episode 1, and you're like, man, like they were terrible back then. So we were talking back then at the beginning of May. It runs from the end of April. There's one event, and I don't think I ever saw this, but it's okay. So it's the MLP Cup That'll be hosted in Dallas, Texas, and that will be October 31st to November 2nd. So to your point, and what's really interesting about this is the MLP season is almost nested directly into the PPA season. So the PPA season kicked off. We had a little break where we had PPA. I thought that was this does say this does say it was an MLP event. San Clemente, California, which just happened. And then we have what's coming up is New York City. And that is July 3rd through the 6th. But anyway, it's nested directly into the PPA. So you have two different seasons running simultaneously, but you have it alternating. Like you started off PPA, you come in MLP. They took a little break. I think they had one PPA event, and that's when Ben Johns kind of had that fire again. And, and all the podcasters that are really, I think there's one show, it's called King of the Court, where they talk about players, the leagues, PPA and MLP. I do like that one a lot because you have a guy on there who is an MLP player, and then you got another guy who's part owner in another team, one of the challenger teams. Yeah. But most of the other guys are all pickleball paddle reviewers. I love to nerd out and geek on that stuff, but I don't have any place to speak on it other than to play. For those who don't know, my first paddle was a Selkirk Amped Invicta. Looked great. I'll probably get hung up on the wall here pretty soon. So right now I'm recording in my son's room because he has a standing desk that I can raise up and down. So I kind of made my own podcast little area. I do want to have some decorations in here for that. If you're in business and don't play pickleball, but it's something you're looking to invest in, go spend a couple $100. Go buy some paddles. If you're a family man, I help coach my son's baseball team, and I've been doing that since he was in T-ball every single summer. But I probably have never had so much fun with him, us going to the court and playing pickleball. And then the cool part about that is, and JR's well aware, I've told him this 1,000 times, all of his baseball buddies that are nearby, they all got in pickleball, and a lot of them bought pickleball paddles. I'll take them in my truck, and we'll go to the local courts and play for 3-4 hours and be a sweaty mess. And we know where the switches are to the lights, so we'll turn the lights on and play till 10:30 at night. It's been a blast. It's a great family sport. If you got a daughter and she's got a boyfriend, you can say, hey, let's all go play pickleball. You can get to know this new boyfriend versus the old days of just polishing up the old rifle. Yeah. But anyway, that's just a little rant I wanted to go on about pickleball paddles and getting into the sport and growth of it. So back to your point. League nested into a league through the season. Now, I think that's something I should try to do is reach out to Connor once we get a few episodes under our belt here and we really seem more professional and official in everything that we do, is see if we can get Connor Pardo on and talk to him about the leagues being nested in together. And then what is the so-called off season? We know the off seasons for MLB, NBA, NFL, and everything. What does it look like are running week to week from city to city? It's crazy the amount of travel these guys are doing and trying to get there and then practice their drives and, dinking with their team or with their partners, whatever they're doing to make sure they're ready for that event, whether it's a single event, doubles, mixed doubles, or MLP type event. There's a lot that goes to it. So they need that downtime. They do need to rest and recover. There's been a few people player-wise that have gotten hurt over the last few weeks. There was one team, it might have been Columbus, who had an injury, and one person who was sick. And they was all their big name players too that this was happening at.
Well, having a season, like businesses don't have seasons, right? No. There could be seasonality in business, depending on your industry, your vertical, those kinds of things. But businesses, day in, day out, there's revenues, there's expenses. So I look forward to digging in a little bit further related to the business side of it.
Yep.
What's the business look like in the off season? When the players aren't traveling, when the players aren't performing, what's kind of going on behind the scenes? I look forward to talking about those things.
Yep. Let's jump into something here. When we talk about that and we talk about the MLP, let's talk about the strategic focus. When it went from Margaritaville, that was more lifestyle, community aspects because, the pro pickleball leagues was kind of like small and niche, if you will, right? And now today, we have DoorDash, we have this tech integration, we have this national marketing campaign. And then when you think of DoorDash, we think of convenience, right?
Yep.
I've never DoorDashed myself, but my daughter has. And she's like, oh, yeah, we DoorDash this, we DoorDash that. And I'm like, they came to our house. I'm not in a big city, so we're around Pittsburgh area. I am 50 minutes from downtown. I can be at Morgantown, West Virginia, home of the West Virginia Mountaineers, my alma mater for my master's degree. In 20 minutes, I can be in Pittsburgh in 50 minutes. I'm the last county before you jump into West Virginia. So I'm closer to Morgantown. But anyway, I guess there is door dashing here and people do it. So for me, that was new. I knew about it, but just never used it. So anyway, I think it's, in my opinion, the DoorDash leans more younger demographic than it does the older demographic. But at the same time, if you watch the events, you'll see a mix of demographics, but you will see some older people there, and they're being exposed to DoorDash. And they know their grandchild or their granddaughter or their grandson or maybe their son or daughter have DoorDashed. So now they start doing it. There's this, I think there's a growth thing that happens, in my opinion, in two different areas, because you think DoorDash, you think, like I said, convenience, young, hip, and, that aligns to that younger generation. But now you just introduce something that the younger generation is using, kind of like social media, right? We were on Facebook first, we were on Instagram first. And then the fastest growing markets were older generations, because the saturation of, your 18 to 24, 25 to 34 and so on was already saturated. So now, these older generations are wanting to follow where mom and dad are, or where their son and daughter are, where their grandkids are, and see their pictures. And obviously, there's some grandkids that are cringing, like, oh, my grandparents are following me. I got to use my private stories now. So anyway, I think to me, it solidified the MLP more going to the DoorDash side of things versus, and I love Margaritaville. Don't get me wrong. I think of beach, I think of, relaxation and stuff, but I think where they see MLP and where they see pickleball going, like, there is that stigma, like you said, of old, and you think slow. Well, guess what? Grandma can probably smoke you in a game because she knows the shots to make and when to make them. And that kind of goes back to that Wayne Gretzky mindset of, like, knowing the play before it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it is fast paced. And you mentioned earlier, I was laughing, you said about, well, it's kind of like tennis, tennis and pickleball players. I mean, there is tennis players that have crossed over to play pickleball and they're good. And I mentioned the whole Jack Sock thing. Jack Sock was a really good tennis player that's made his money in tennis. And now he's over in pickleball and he's having fun. I don't know how serious he is about it. And I think there's people that have talked about that. There is that stigma between the two. A lot of the playing today is a lot more tennis-like versus the dinks and the drop shots. While it's still like, you want to, get that third drop shot, you want to run to the kitchen line, you want to be ready to rock and roll there at the kitchen line. There's a lot more people, I think, we're seeing in matches where they're playing back at the baseline and hitting shots like tennis players do. So that's happening. So it is fast paced. I think, like I said, DoorDash, great. You think fast delivery. To me, I do all these correlations and people are like, oh, you're stupid. But that's kind of what I see about the transition between Margaritaville to DoorDash.
And we're less than a year into this title sponsor deal with DoorDash. Yep. I think it's probably a 3-year deal, if you know that for sure off
largest
the top of your head.
MLP history, multi-million 3-year term.
Yeah. So point being, it'll be fun to watch. It looks like a great match right now. Let's see if they can make it better. If they come up with some new things while the deal's still in place, to even strengthen that relationship more.
Yeah, to your point, Margaritaville was more of a grassroots type thing. I don't know how much went into that, and quite frankly, I don't know the numbers or the background on it, but DoorDash is national ad campaigns, it's brand partnerships, and that's everything that you and I love and interest us. So I'm excited to see where they go with that. And if that continues to be the title sponsor beyond the 3-year deal, and I guess we'll find out in 2028.
That's right.
So analysis, what this means for MLPs, there's this shift from that startup feel to really becoming a scalable pro league. This being my first full year of watching MLP, I've seen some wrinkles and kinks and almost correlate it to what we're doing right now with this podcast, like wrinkles and kinks and things that we can come back and say, hey, where do we want to fix things and whatever. But I think that's what's happening. They got a new league leader that's running the MLP itself. Like I said, there's been some hiccups here and there. Some ways I think they've done a good job. Other ways I've kind of cringed at things that they've done and handled with athletes, and athlete interaction is how I'll call that. But what I think DoorDash does as MLP is really kind of going into that new phase of scalable pro league, is DoorDash is bringing credibility, it's bringing funding, it's bringing visibility. I think as a result, we can expect to see more sponsorships. We can probably, something that we've talked about more than a month ago now, is advanced integrations into some of these partnerships. That's something I think we'll start to see as well. And as a result, at the end of the day, what does the MLP and the PPA want? They want big media deals, right? And I think I'm trying to remember what event it was. I don't know off the top of my head, but they were on Fox Sports something, and that was huge. Like, will we get to the day that we see them on ESPN? I don't think there's no reason we shouldn't be on ESPN. Back in the day, wakeboarder. I used to wakeboard. I went to competitions, and I did that for a few seasons before I met my wife. ESPN showed the pro wakeboard league, if you will. They would do tour stops, kind of like what PPA is, but they were showing it at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And they just so happened to fall on the night before a competition for me where I had to drive to. I don't want to see the PPA or the MLP be on 1 o'clock in the morning on ESPN. I like to see them just get on. Let's see what viewership turns into. And then can they start to get more of those prime time things? We have baseball. Golf is on the Golf Channel. It's on NBC. We don't really see golf on ESPN.
Live?
Yeah, no, the one where they do it indoors.
Oh.
I can't think of the name of that, but to me, that's what MLP is almost, because you got this team. They are one-offs at the PGA events, but then they come in and do this team event where they're almost doing like the screen thing, and then they go to the actual so-called green to do their putting and stuff, right? But I feel like that's really the main thing that happened in the summer. So I feel like they could strike a deal with ESPN down the road. And I'm hoping that the glass ball, we're telling some sort of fortune that comes up here in a year or two or whatever. But
you're first.
Yep, you heard it here first. So I guess for anybody who's listening to this episode, when you think of pickleball, you think of PPA, MLP. I guess first, like, if you're listening, I would love for you to message us on Facebook or Instagram. I think it's just Pickleball Business Lab. It could be the Pickleball Business Lab. I think it's Pickleball Business Lab. And do you play pickleball? And do you watch pro pickleball? Because there is this major disparity between how many pickleball players there are worldwide versus how many people actually watch any of these pro events. And quite frankly, do they know who the pros are? Right? Next episode, let's talk personal branding around the athletes, because I really, really want to dig into a personality type like Tyson McGuffin and what he's been able to do from a personal brand standpoint with the help of his wife, who's almost like a brand manager to him and support system. But all the doors that he's been able to open up because of what he's done from a personal brand perspective. So once again, if you are listening to this episode, whether it's now or it's 2 years from now, and if we've continued on with this show, I hope we have, and I hope we've grown. I would love for you to reach out to us, message us, let us know, do you play pickleball? Do you watch pro events? And then the third question is, if it's yes and yes, what sponsorships do you think would reflect best for MLP moving forward? Maybe that resonate with you. And if you feel comfortable, tell us your age group. I think there's a lot of data points here. And that's the big thing with marketing and advertising is data points. Taking the data, being able to understand the data and read it, and then make informed decisions based off that data, which tells you if your advertising is working, if your marketing is working. And then usually you can find a breakdown of where there's good things happening, bad things happening, and then you can adjust your marketing plan as you move forward. If you are a brand and you're listening to us, I feel bad for you, but I would like the chance to say that we do plan to grow this thing, bring in new technology, because got some decent mics, but we do want to grow this. We want to, hopefully down the road have a small pickleball studio podcast, Pickleball Business Lab studio podcast soon. Hopefully here in episode 5 or so, JR will have new Pickleball Business Lab hats that we can actually wear. I'm pretty excited about that.
Let's go.
But I would love for you, if you've listened, to reach out and just give us your thoughts. If it stunk, tell us it stunk. If there's something you see, let us know. We're open to criticism. We're open to suggestions. With that, JR, let's close it out.
I love it.
Thank you for listening. If you get the chance, give us a follow on Instagram or Facebook. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll look forward to bringing you a new episode each week. Thank you, and have a great day.
That wraps up this episode of the Pickleball Business Lab. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone else who's building in the world of pickleball. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or on LinkedIn. You can find show notes, episode highlights, and more at pickleballbusinesslab.com. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep serving up smart plays on and off the court.